So we're going to have a little Q&A, and I think, in case you didn't do the QR code thing before, guys, don't worry, it's up there again. But we have had a few questions come through, so I am going to ask the questions. All right, so number one. Where does one actually begin in imagining and designing a product that doesn't exist yet? Does it hit you like a lightning bolt, or is there more of a process or framework to coming up with ideas like that?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I really believe in this idea of like vision instead of reason. I think a lot of founders, friends, when they started companies, they try to reason themselves to a vision. But I think that vision is like, it's like sight. So it's like if you take a particular perspective, you can have an intellectual sight that can give you a high conviction without fully understanding it yet. And I would say that was one part of how we got there. And it actually came from just first imagining the global social safety net. So if you first just imagine that we might make a global social safety net, and then we just realized if we make a global social safety net, and that's today done by countries, might it be that that will essentially become like a first country on the internet? So that's how, it's the second part of that, which is Nomad Citizen, is like a discovery. Yeah, that would be my kind of take on it. What do you think?
I think maybe one other thing I've heard from you before, which I think is really relevant here, is like thinking specifically like what you would want in the world versus what other people might want. I think it's very easy to just design something that, okay, well, we'll solve like this problem and this problem and this problem because we've heard that problem from people before, versus actually thinking like, what is it that I fundamentally want to see in the world, starting from there as a point and then building it.
I think that's really interesting. It's quite a relationship between the idea of finding a problem to solve and developing a vision, which I think is something that a lot of founders kind of struggle with and wonder about. Like, maybe just super quickly from each of you, like, what do you see as the most important part there? Like, finding a problem to solve, or really finding like a unique vision?
I would argue the vision. I think if you have a strong vision for what you want to build, then you can adjust that thing to be relevant for a lot of people in the world. But I think it's harder to do it the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like the value of ideas versus execution. Yeah, you definitely do need both. I mean, the vision gives you conviction to stay at it through difficulty, but obviously in practice, in the day by day, is all problem solving. And if you're not just solve real problems, like in our case, one of the hard part, and so many startups who do this very like difficult projects have to find a way to get customers along the way, to get the seed round and like kind of to bootstrap their way there. And that is like a lesser, it's like backfilling the business model, backfilling the problem solving, while still trying to keep yourself on a trajectory towards a, an interesting end state. So yeah, that's what I think they're very complementary. It's hard for me to tell which one. I do know many people say the vision part doesn't matter. If you just kind of problem solve, you just search blindly, you'll eventually get somewhere interesting. But yeah, I would probably not do that.
All right. Can you share a moment in the journey so far when you really thought it was game over and how you resolved that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it in the presentation, but we were told like everything was illegal. Like what we were going to try and do was just, that was impossible. Especially because like the idea of giving a safety net, insurances, et cetera, to work globally means all of a sudden you have to deal with like 195 plus different countries and all their regulations. And so yeah, that was I think that was a little bit of a tough point where we all wondered what would happen next, and through first principles thinking, we ended up with a great solution.
Nothing to add? Okay. Okay, so the idea of this product is as an MVP of a citizenship for the internet generation. How do we get from its current state to a fully featured citizenship? I guess like the real question here is kind of what's the future vision for this thing that you're building?
Well, I do think this is an MVP of the internet citizenship. Like that's, its name, Nomad Citizen. So while in its current state, it doesn't sort of fully embody the implication in the name. But Nomad Border Pass in particular puts us on a trajectory that eventually lands in internet country. So if you imagine adding countries to the Border Pass, the Nomad visas, you eventually get to something like Schengen for countries with Nomad visas. And once you have that, I think you can add on top of that identification. And at that point, if you have a full social safety net, you have a passport and you have global residency, you're starting to approach the point where I think a reasonable objective observer might say, this is the first internet country. So it's essentially just adding countries to Nomad Border Pass and adding identification to get to sort of that state, I think.
Take a slightly different approach. I think, so there's a lot of people trying to build a similar idea of like, can we build a country on the internet? A lot of them have taken one of two approaches, which is either just get a bunch of community, just get a bunch of people together and try and unite them around the idea, or let's like buy a plot of land somewhere and we're gonna turn this into a country one day. We've taken a different approach, which is, can you provide like a fundamentally useful thing that then people will use, and if you can bring a sense of togetherness, then you can create something out of it. And so I think for us the answer is scale. Once we have scale and enough people, then all of a sudden doing those other things, i.e. giving people a sense of like identity among the group, or being able to provide like physical land through embassies becomes a lot more possible and real. So it's scale, I think that's the main thing.
So I'm just going to take a moment here to plug. This time next week, if you fancy coming to another summit on a Saturday, you can come and learn a little more about some of those projects that Brennan mentions, the ones that are bringing people together, trying to build new cities. And we will be back here with a whole bunch of different speakers on some of the network state and kind of charter city projects that are happening. So do come back and join us. You guys, thank you very, very much for the talks, for answering the questions. Yeah, a round of applause.